No, you tell us, ask your instructing counsel to be here.
Well,
We'll see.
please.
Let it move forward.
Yes, we will settle. Please.
Of course, call that 4 o'clock. The party in person, we had told 4 o'clock.
Number 1, LPA-193 of 22. Deep Vyas.
Yes. Others need not wait. Yes, sir. Yes.
My Lord, I begin by offering my gratitude for recognizing a medical condition and accommodating me. I also owe an apology for offending you inadvertently by coming in the morning. But my Lord, I came in the morning precisely to avoid offending this honorable court because I thought the serial number wanted me there.
Come to the argument, sir.
My Lord, may I remind you of the brief important ingredients of the case?
No, we sufficiently recollect. If we get any doubt, we'll call upon you.
Thank you, my Lord. I'll proceed with what I consider in my humble understanding as the legal issues involved here. My Lord, the following are the legal dimensions that we are dealing with a public authority that is expected to facilitate public service and private-public partnership. We have charged this authority with gross abuse of authority through arbitrary behavior and visible malice. Its actions constitute brazen violation of constitutionally guaranteed rights such as fundamental right to equality and of equal protection of laws, and legal right in respect of superstructures, not in respect of the land, my Lord, as evidenced by arbitrariness, patent unreasonableness and unfairness, which I will presently substantiate, my Lord, failure to follow due process, and destroying wanton destruction of nation's property as enemy property, deliberate calumny and tarnishing our reputation, and my Lord, during the proceedings also, an attempt to mislead this honorable court, almost amounting virtually to perjury. Its actions also prevented us from developing scientific temper, which was mandated constitutional fundamental duty. I beg to seek to invoke universally celebrated doctrines of estoppel, legitimate expectations, and of proportionality. Kindly allow me to draw fine distinctions between the following issues that I will be touching upon during the case. Thank you, my Lord. De jure and de facto, they have stuck throughout this exercise of 4 years to one line called expiry of term. I submit that was what the letter said. And this distinction is critical to this case, my Lord, because it ignores de facto waiver of that term through a series of actions which I will presently substantiate if permitted. My Lord, also circumstantial, plethora of circumstantial evidence that's been hidden from this court. Also, my Lord, part and whole, they're not looking at the issue in totality, we're just picking it up. I also wish to draw a distinction between a private landlord and a public authority. And I believe, in my humble understanding, that a state authority owns this land on behalf of the sovereign, namely the people of India, in a fiduciary capacity. Its powers also carry an attendant responsibility to act fairly, reasonably, and transparently, and in public interest. I shall illustrate subsequently that they did not do so. I also beg to draw a distinction between service and profit. I accused the public authority of making illegitimate profit of crores of rupees by leading SPRAT to invest continuously for 13 long years through a number of their acts, and then throwing us out. At the end of this whole exercise, AMC did not spend a penny except giving that land and the initial covering. SPRAT invested all the land, all the investment it made in building the park, running it, maintaining it, taking the legal risks of safety of the users, funded all expenses, but at the end of it, lost it all completely, lock, stock and barrel. And what is now lying here, a park of crores of rupees now lies as scrap of worth a few lakhs rupees of absolutely no use. Imagine, my lord, if it was Bolt, they would have permitted us to charge a fee, raise money. My lord, typically it is believed that government patronizes civil service society organizations or NGOs and then serves the public. So government funds and NGO operates and people benefit. Here, NGO funded the government, the public authority, and served the public, and the NGO was left in the lurch. There is a distinction in the nature of allotee. SPRAT is not a commercial operator out to make a profit. We served 1.5 million users for 17 long years without charging a penny. I also submit that this allotee was destined to serve public, and our charter, as your lordship have asked previously and have brought, I'll submit presently. This public authority, this allotee, my lord, unlike a private allotee, is liable to follow due process. Like a public authority, we are also liable to follow the laws of the trust and society, our board's resolutions. We are accountable to donors, and we have to issue the tenders and quotations. So it was impossible for us to vacate the park in 3 days, pack and go. So the nature of allotee, as an allotee, we are not an encroacher, and I beg to submit the difference here. My lord, if it was an encroachment, then it would have been a different story. Here, this occupation was actually facilitating their objectives. It was an earmarked green land. We were running a park. They have no problem. They are not submitted nothing on this in this court to suggest that we were doing anything in violation of the terms of allotment or even in the future goals. Now we come to termination of the contract. The letter of allotment is the only instrument governing this transaction, and I beg to submit the following. It clearly provides two routes. I will be within a few minutes, my lord. I'll cite the requisite papers and the precise annexure. Can you allow me the continuous flow for the next 2-3 minutes? The letter of allotment provides for exit, for our removal, for throwing us out, if the term is exhausted. And it, as the circumstances stood, we did exceed that 1 year, and I have submitted how. The second is that there was a blanket clause in the first letter of allotment that order could remove us whenever they want for whatever the purpose. We protested, got that removed, and the second letter removed that. So now they have only one way, one condition. Of course, they remain the owner, and I never had dare question that. I am an allotee, not owner, never was, nor shall be. But they have the right to terminate this allotment if we violate the specified terms, and those conditions are secularism, communal harmony, non-profit, etc. None of which has ever been violated, nor have they ever accused, nor can they today accuse. So the only two ways to evict us, one of them was 1 year, and we will presently address this. The second was violation of objectives. They have never accused. I submit, therefore, that they have had no right to evict us ab initio in the first place. There was a reason why the blanket power of removal, power of evicting us was removed. We need to go into that. My lord, the park, as we built, and a garden. A garden is a patch of green with a few lawns. Whereas what we built, and in conformity with the allotment objectives, was a multi-purpose socio-cultural service center, quite like a technology park. The word park may be understood as in the technology park. It was an integrated facility involving an auditorium, hobby center, books, computer center, and so on. It was not a civil structure, my lord. We were not permitted to build, and nor did we build. It was entirely removable.
Mr. Jowher, you will have to conclude before 5 o'clock. Right?
Yes, sir.
We will not grant you further time, up to 5 o'clock.
Yes, sir. These were totally removable, and the rest were movable assets, my lord. They were also destroyed. They were not a part of the park, but integral to the park, and yet they were removed. For example, as a part of socio-cultural activities, we used to conduct painting competitions for all the schools of Gujarat. These paintings were evaluated by judges, and the best ones would be autographed by the illustrious painter, Madam Anjali Ilamen. That whole stock that was burnt, destroyed, burned, soaked in rain, many such things. We used to conduct surveys of Hindu-Muslim perception. Those survey forms were like, it was all very well arranged. There was all of them were destroyed, but we were not given an opportunity to solve it. And I shall presently refer to those mails, begging them to permit us to solve it. I'm proceeding with a little speed to keep my time, my lord. Demolition. There is a distinction between destruction and removal. In their notice in Gujarati, of which translation has been submitted, they threatened to remove the assets. Let us grant them the right. Removability ought to imply reusability of the removed assets. What they did was to ensure, and I'm saying this with utter responsibility, complete responsibility, destroying, crumbling, ramming, crushing, cutting, so that they cannot be used. Today, if you see the pictures of what the stock is lying, and I had the opportunity of showing the picture last time, it's worthless. Compensation. I agree. I respect the fact that a normal compensation claim ought to be filed before the city civil court, because this honorable court would hardly have the time and wherewithal to assess the validity of a claim. But I approach this court, my lord, for justice against gross abuse of authority by a state entity. And I beg this court to award exemplary damages as a retributive, as a punishment to an organ of the executive for going berserk, for exceeding this jurisdiction, for violating the law. It is the occasion for this honorable court to tame a public authority that seems to have taken law in their hands. Against this reckless destruction, my lord, I stand here as the president and co-founder of this NGO that is at the brink of insolvency by virtue of the complete destruction of all of its life savings. With this, my lord, I introduce what I suggest, what I submit as questions of law. Honorable Justice Mr. Chandrachud recently reminded us of the importance of due process to be followed in bulldozing and removing these things. I submit, and I shall produce the evidences that gross abuse of that authority and complete violation of that process has happened. Second, is a notice, I ask myself, a notice issued by a public authority arbitrarily, unreasonably, and impossible to implement by anybody? A notice that is prima facie impossible to be implemented. Is such a notice valid at law? If it is not valid, then every action flowing out of that notice, such as sealing the park and subsequent demolition, would automatically, ab initio, would be void, I suppose. The denial of a request to vacate the park within 3 months. Was it possible for them to allow? Well, they kept the park sealed for 3 long months, 16 months. So they surely could have given us 3 months, and we furnished the reasons. And I shall be presently taking your lordships, if you permit, to the precise evidence of what we have submitted. My lord, why eviction in the first place? There is not a single paper, no notice in the entire 4 years exercise cites any provision of law, It doesn't cite under what act or what provision they want this eviction, nor the notice, nor a notice was served for demolition. I beg to repeat, I may be permitted to repeat, my lord, that they sealed the park was sealed, during which time we approached them repeatedly, and I repeat, 3 times on evidence on record, privately several times, permitting us to salvage the goods and take it away. They did not respond, and they suddenly one day demolished. In the proceedings before the previous honorable bench, my colleague counselor for the respondent had this to say. He said, verbally informed. They were informed verbally. I wish they submit an affidavit to that extent. No information was ever given to us, and we learned from our neighbors. My lord, my final distinction is between citizen and public authority. As a citizen, from morning, noon, and 9, I undergo several procedures for such small things like getting my marks of examination verified, or minor scholarship, issue of the ration card, filing of an income tax return, or any of those hundreds of returns. One minor mistake and I'm punished. One omission and I'm punished. And here is a public authority that did not know what happened to its 2,500 square meter land for 13 years. How did they account for this piece of missing land in the midst of Ahmedabad? How did they report compliance of the developmental norms for mandatory green park for 13 long years? So quite clearly they were taking advantage of this park and at the same time denying it. How did they route MPLAD grant? How did they permit their councillors to channelize their grant if the park was illegitimate? Now here are the questions of facts. Was it a conventional park? No. Did we have the authority? Yes, sir. We remain a valid allottee, not an encroacher. Did we violate the terms of allotment? Never. They have not alleged ever. Did they respond? Did they have alternatives? Yes, sir. They could have asked us to make some amends, whatever, and they could have asked us to run the park as they would wish. There were legal alternatives available to them. Could we occupy the land? Could we claim ownership? No, never. Our signboards proclaimed loudly that this was AUDA's property, AMC property, and we are merely a manager. I'm almost coming to the end of this, my lord.
Yes. What is this park called as?
Beg your pardon, my lord.
What was this park called as?
Muskaan, M-U-S-K-A-N.
What do you mean by Muskaan?
Smile, my lord.
Huh?
Smile. And the tagline was putting a smile on the parched lips. And my lord, we added the word AUDA entirely at our own initiative. We called it AUDA Muskaan Park. There was no requirement, no mandate, my lord. And the notice on the signboard loudly says, this land belongs to AUDA/AMC. Earlier we wrote AUDA when the land went into the jurisdiction of AMC. Now, I beg your permission to read the letter on page number 90. This letter, my lord, was written by Mr. Surendra Patel. He was the chairman of AUDA at the time of issuing that allotment. And I beg to remind you that I had discussed this with Mr. Patel himself and had asked for allotment for 30 years. And he had promised only then we proceeded. Unfortunately, in the first letter, there were many errors. He rectified and the second letter of allotment was issued. But this clause of 1 year was not removed, which I again reminded at the time of inauguration. And I will be showing you the photograph on page number, my lord, 158. If I will come back to this letter and read it out for you, my lord. But page number 158. shows, page 158 shows, and your lordship probably had the time to have a look at it. This was the land, kind of top left was the kind of land that was given to us and what we made of it. Several programs, as you would see in the right bottom, national anthem, national celebration of national days. Left bottom was the bringing together of children of various communities. My lord, AMC itself was so pleased with our work that they set up a special bus route and a bus stop right at the gate, top rightmost, my lord. This barren piece of low-lying land, usually inhabited by security forces, and we approached the order and said, sir, you have not been able to set up this park for 30 long years, despite the mandate, and they used to say it was very difficult. And I had to resort to Gandhigiri in order to win the confidence of the people. Page number 159, my lord, shows what became of this, including the multicultural, socio-cultural empowerment activities at the right in the bottom most, you would kindly see that science exhibitions, promotion of rationality, particularly introspection and reform in the Muslim community. And I may mention here that my book, Khitab-e-Nau, and my speeches on that invoke this need for reform. Page number 160, my lord, yoga, health age, with the courtesy of the NGO called Help Age, we would provide free medical care for the elderly. In the left bottom, my lord, is the auditorium inaugurated by none other than the then mayor of AMC. This was, my lord, 6 years after the first letter of allotment in 2010. Today we are being told that our allotment had expired in 2005 itself for 1 year. So, but the possession was given after expiry. Inauguration by the governor happened 2 years after that. And this auditorium was built by us and inaugurated by their mayor with the Deputy Commissioner Gardens in tow in 2010, as indicated there. And the next page is page 161, goes back to the date of inauguration. My lord, this was inaugurated as written there in 2006, and the letter of allotment is 2004. So it has already expired. If I were to go literally by the wording, then the inauguration is an invalid program. I ought not to have been inaugurated, been a part of the inauguration, but the AUDA chairman is present, my lord. He co-inaugurated it. So I, as a citizen, am lost for words. I, as a citizen, do not know what I should have done. My lord, in fact, this is the question that my donors, my volunteers keep asking me. Where did we go wrong? What wrong did we do? My lord, to every single notice of theirs, we have furnished reply. We have evidence of submitting everything.
What is this demolition taking place in page 163?
Page 163 is what was happening on 4th June 2021.
There is some, what is this building, is it?
Bulldozers, my lord.
No, correct. What is that they are bulldozing?
They are bulldozing all the structures, games, auditorium, the hobby center, science center. They reduced this park to a barren piece of land.
But your allotment letter, Mr. Jowher,
Ji, my lord,
shows that you are supposed to keep it vacant.
I can read out that letter, my lord.
(65B) is your allotment letter.
Yes, my lord.
66B.
Ji, my lord.
No civil or permanent construction can be done in this plot.
Yes, my lord. Yes, my lord. No, clause number 2, my lord,
Yes.
paragraph number 2 of 66B. No civil or permanent construction can be done in this plot. And we did none.
No, this 163, page 163 shows some big compound.
No, that
That
was
is-
built by them and it continues to be there. That was built by them and it continues to be there. In fact, the letter of allotment.
No, that
later
is
says
also
we-
being demolished.
Yeah, what is demolished is the metallic structures, games, adventure games, commando, bridge, all of those, my lord.
Oh.
Yes, except the watchman's tiny quarter, nothing was permitted nor was built. if I may be permitted to proceed, page number 163, my lord, that you have come to is a telling page, a comment. It shows the massive scale of destruction. This was Mount, my lord, on the top right that you are seeing is the mountain, the climbing wall. It is not a covered structure. They had, it's a rock climbing. You would, one could ask, what is the computer doing? What could DVDs are doing? Well, we were a hobby center. We were teaching computer usage because during the day, because of the metal structure, the park was not useful. So we were providing free education. My lord, I repeat, everything was so free. This was United States Council that consulate had provided all of these: encyclopedia, DVDs, science center, hobby center, yoga, help page. All of these were being provided for free, which is how we were able to serve 15 lakh people, my lord, in 17 years. We also used to get students from all over Ahmedabad, my lord. My lord, I may remind that this is located at the so-called juncture.
Yes, Mr. Jowher.
Ji, my lord, I was referring to page number 90. The letter written by the erstwhile chairman who was present in the inauguration ceremony and who it was who had promised long-term allotment, but that error crept in, for which I am paying dearly. Page number 90, my lord, if I may be permitted to read this out loudly.
Yes.
This is written to the municipal commissioner by Mr. Surendra Patel. This has a reference to the letter numbered so and so and dated so and so. I shall presently read that letter later, my lord. This is referring to my letter written to the deputy commissioner, and it says, I am pleased to testify that to the extent of my knowledge, the assertions made in the letter are true and factual. And one of the assertions categorically is that the park was meant to be allotted for long term. We will come to that later if your lordship at the time. The third, I know that trustees of SPRAT, so and so name, my name as well, are dedicated nationalists and trustworthy people. And fourth, I strongly recommend the long-term regularization of the land allotment and for provision of facilities like water and electricity. My lord, the very next page, and that is again very important. There were 6 councillors in the area adjoining this park, 2 from one political party and 3 from another and 1 independent. We are not going to the names of political parties. These are the letters written by these 6 councillors. Kindly allow me to run through the cardinal points of this letter. Page number 92A, my lord. For example, this page was signed by Panna Ben Rao. More or less, these are prototype letters. I may refer to the paragraphs which are of interest to me, but I will be pleased to, I'll be humbly pleased to read out the whole letter. To save you time, I'm taking to the important ones. Paragraph number 3, in this scenario, order allotted. The paragraph number 2 says the main plot which was reserved only for making garden, reserved for garden, that garden order could not make for years. There was no other park in the Juhapura area. And therefore, paragraph number 3, in this scenario, order allotted the said plot in the year 2004 on the request of a registered public servant, etc., to build a park, taking into account its nationalist nature, patriotism, and board of governors, home ministry, and income tax registration. Fourth, SPRAT asked for allotment of the land for 99 years. At that time, I was told that there is no such provision and maximum could be 30 years. But order assured them that there would be no question of reclaiming the land if SPRAT was running the park satisfactorily. So the question that boils down to is whether SPRAT violated the terms and whether it was running satisfactorily. My lord, I have the humble pride in submitting to you that never in its history of 17 years has any authority, including the respondent, both the respondent, have ever taken any objection to or identified any deficiency in the running of this park in any way. May I proceed, my lord?
Yes.
SPRAT. Fifth, SPRAT has worked hard on this pitted land, filled it up won the trust of the locals and created a unique park with the help of government agencies like ONGC, BSNL, etc. The park was inaugurated. We could skip this. Number 7, my lord. After the plot came under the jurisdiction of AMC, the AMC, with the grant of Shri L. Advani, said laid the flooring in the auditorium of the park, the auditorium that stands destroyed, which was inaugurated by the then mayor Shri Asit Vora. So he was very appreciative of the park and visited and invited SPRAT to set up 2 more such parks, which SPRAT declined, thankfully. Today, we are accused of land grabbing and bracketed with land mafia. There is a newspaper report indirectly hinting at that. Miller, we could skip this whole letter, which is time consuming. There are some praises in the remaining paragraphs. We will, if you would permit, my lord, we will, if you need the affirmation that Mr. Surendra Patel and the councillors are referring to that letter of mine to the commissioner, in which the loudest assertion is that it was meant to be given for long term. I can return if your lordship desire. We will, may we visit page number 132, my lord. This 132 is the desperate cry of the allottee who was seeing things being ruined and sealed and denied access. My lord, there were fish ponds, there were fountains, lots of greenery. All of these were rotting under the seal for 16 months. This letter, my lord, is dated 8th March, and I read, Dear Mr. Commissioner, it is headed, my lord, bidding a graceful goodbye. This is, my lord, long before we even dreamt of the threat of demolition. We didn't even have, not until it was demolished, did we imagine that a state agency could demolish nation's property as enemy property. We could not even dream. Otherwise, we would have done everything that was possible. We would approach your lordship. The worst fear we had was that they would ask us to vacate, and we had volunteered, and this is about it. Bidding a graceful goodbye. Dear Mr. Commissioner, AUDA Muskaan Park, I make bold to remind you, sir, that all we requested was enough time to unbolt, saw, cut, dig out, lift, pack, and move all of us stuff. And you graciously agreed to consider our request for JCB and trailer support, if possible. If this can happen, we can vacate the park not in 3, but in less than 1 month. Number 2, and if AMC allots this park, paragraph number 2, and if AMC allots this park to someone else to run it using assets funded by us, and if he pays us an amount adjudged by AMC as fair market value, we will leave them behind and vacate the park in 1 day. Number 3, equally, we will be privileged to explain how we promoted adventure, science, education, cultural exchanges, national integration, and a host of other socio-cultural activities, including yoga and free healthcare, etc., all in this unusual multi-purpose park of barely 50 by 50 meters. I must remind that this was a claustrophobic piece of 50 by 50. It was like a farmhouse of a rich man. And we were offering all of this. So we consulted experts from around the world to be able to devise, layout, the design. All of this lies in shambles today. Thank you, sir, for ensuring that an NGO. Milord, the very second page, page number 133, there were 3 of them. During the period when the park remained sealed, we begged them to unseal. Milord, they have submitted a rejoinder, and I accused them of misleading this court, and here is why. They have, in the rejoinder, said that despite the opportunity, we did not vacate, and that we never approached them for unsealing. Here are 3 letters, my lord. These are, besides the numerous calls and visits, that's quite besides. This is dated 20th April 20. due to corona crisis, I haven't bothered you so and so. I had hoped, second line, I had hoped that once things normalize, the AMC graciously helps with JCB and trailer in consideration of our 15 years dedicated in free services. We will swiftly dismantle our infrastructure, remove our valuables and vacate the park. And so it goes on. I think I'll skip through. Another letter is page number 134, the very third one, email. These are 3 emails, my lord. This is besides my visit with 3 NGOs to the then commissioner, Mr. Vijay Nehra, and I mentioned in the previous hearing, and the gracious commissioner graciously asked us not to vacate. He said, you stay put, I'll come and visit the park. In fact, you're doing such wonderful work that would like you to set up 2 more exhibition centers at riverfront. All of this was wasted because he was transferred in 4 months and we heard nothing. So we wrote these 3 mails, and on 4th June,
Who was that commissioner? Mukesh Kumar.
the commissioner then whom we saw was Mr. Vijay Nehra, VIJAY. And if the lordships desire, the 3 NGOs who went to see him can submit an affidavit, can furnish an affidavit. So the contention of the respondent that we were given an opportunity is a lie. I'm sorry. If the word sounds harsh, I may say perjury. They are on record saying this. My lord, when they came to seal the park, what did they see? They saw us unpacking the goods, removing, packing, and there was a tempo. They have said in the notice, in their notice they say that their staff was present. We were removing the goods when they prevented us from removing the sets. I beg to ask you, my lord, if an allottee volunteers to vacate under duress, at no point of time do we concede that they were justified in evicting us. On the contrary, their PPP agreement offer was given by them. After this letter by Mr. Surendra Patel and the 6 councillors, they halted the pressure. Instead, they asked for VPP. I don't know why they suspected that we might not agree, but we readily agreed. Nothing happened. Then we reminded. Then they sent another letter with some formats. We submitted again. We readily, unconditionally accepted. Nothing happened. My lord, Estate Department, a junior officer, was issuing notices for eviction. The Deputy Commissioner, the Director of Garden, was giving us a PPP offer. The Commissioner saying, don't vacate. What would I do as a citizen? A law-abiding citizen, against whom you have no allegation, against whom nobody else has an allegation of financial or any other impropriety, you suddenly come on 4th June 21, bulldoze everything. My lord, this culture of bulldozing must go. Otherwise, no one like me will ever stand again to serve for years. We are citizens, my lord. As civil society organization, as an NGO, I am as much committed to this nation's progress as they are. My lord, I cannot concede to them any greater right of national service than I claim for myself. I'm as devoted, as patriotic, as nationalist as any of these public authorities are. They cannot take away from me the right to serve India, the right to unite people. But they robbed me of that right, and they reduced me to penury, insolvency, bankruptcy. Not only did they save crores of rupees by not running a park for 17 years and getting a park run to fulfill their mandate, and they're simply removed and robbed. I'm sorry, you had advised me in the last hearing to be detached. I've been practicing it, to detach. It has been paying, but only. My apologies, my lord. I'm closing almost. What would have happened if it was a bolt? We would have earned money. If it was a sale, we would have earned money. If we were allowed to charge a fee, we would have earned money. Today, I would probably not be so emotionally ruined. My lord, I know that I'm coming close to the allotted time. Here is my...
5 minutes, it doesn't matter, Mr. Jowher. We don't mind sitting another 5-10 minutes more.
Since I failed to practice your advice to remain dispassionate and objective, I don't have a right to take any more of your time. Here is how I beg to to be permitted to close. My lord, they have, after reducing, after cutting it off, packing it in so many, 35 trucks. The inventory they have furnished says, from the godown of AMC, received 35 trucks of steel. This is what AUDA MUSKAAN Park has become. Your lordships have seen what all it contained. My lord, I'm sure if I enter into a transaction with a party, I'm expected to maintain an account. I submit to GST authorities. I'm sure they have taken an inventory of the park at the time of sealing, and 16 months later, at the time of demolition, I beg your lordships to order them to submit, furnish a properly audited inventory that they must have taken. They must have taken videography. They must have taken photographs. I dare submit no. Otherwise, they should. We can submit what all we built. After this, my lord, while the destruction was on, this is the question. When that destruction was on, we wrote SMSs, WhatsApp, and email, permitting us to rush and salvage. When my neighbors called and informed me, we said, at least allow us to salvage. I thought these Anjali paintings, they were priceless. They could have fetched 1 crore rupees or so. We thought we would save them. Our records, the survey forms, the attendance registers, 17 years data of the running of that park, because the park was being run by a very transparently and democratically by setting up a council called MAC, Muskaan Advisory Council, comprising the political representatives of both the parties and experts who are capable of running and advising us for science, promotion, and garden. So all these records, attendance, minutes, all of these were destroyed, besides valuable things. So these are 3 mails and SMSs. They are on page number 135 onwards, where we begged them to permit us to salvage our assets. 135, 136, and 137. In these 3 pages, my lord, we have pointed out to them that people are stealing, that the people were stealing, my lord. We have given photographs of stealing, which was free for all. It was as if AUDA MUSKAAN AMC thought it fit to destroy it and distribute it. If everybody was free to take anything, and our security watchman, we had not permitted him because the notice of demolition said you shall not enter, and we didn't want to violate. So the photography that we have taken is from the rooftops of the neighboring places. The photographs clearly show fire, rain, books, encyclopedias, valuable DVDs getting soaked, and because they brought cutters and welding machines, they caught fire twice. Things burnt. This is what they want us to collect from their godown, my lord, and give them a discharge that we have received everything. My lord, my prudence suggested that instead of wasting another 3-4 lakh rupees on transporting these goods to Mathur, the only place we have on earth, the only property that SPRAT owns is at Mathur, where we are building a science center. To carry it there, we would need to spend another 3 to 4 lakh rupees.
What is that property? You said science center.
Yes, sir. It's
What
called
is that?
Tarkic Sadan. Tark in Hindi means the vivek or the rationality. Tarkic Sadan is the house of reason. My lord, Society for Promoting Rationality. SPRAT is essentially what? An organization that's devoted to promoting rational thinking. I submit that this is what drives me day, morning, noon, and night, to promote a culture of thinking rather than believing blindly in all domains, from personal sphere to public sphere to governance. We keep submitting memoranda, policy papers, and so on, and engaging people in recreation, education. We were running 8 centers across Gujarat, funded by Ford Foundation, Government of America, ONGC, BSNL, etc. Precisely doing this, engaging people to think through science, through reading, through shared pursuits of learning. And somebody at that time told us, Mr. Jowher, is fine, education and all, but engage people through recreation. That is how we decided to set up one model park. Which is why even 2 more parks were offered, we did not take. We just wanted to set up one model for each of these exercises. Now, tired of this pressure, and those caravan centers were given in privately leased properties. So we decided to build our own one. It cost us 10 long years of hard work. Now that Southern is coming into shape. But because of this destruction, otherwise, my lord, this auditorium could have been lifted unbolted, unwelded, and rewelded into a science lab in Mathur, which is what brings tears to our eyes, because we could see a science lab there, which is what we have been begging them to unseal. Let us take it. Today, we have to start from the scratch. With the donors' trust gone, how do I mobilize money? With this attitude of the public authority, I'm unlikely to receive government funds. How do I fulfill the dream? And I'm aging. I'm a man with a mission. I beg of you to let me pursue this mission. I ask you, your lordships, that I have not violated any law, any terms that they're given. I've faithfully rendered service. Allow me to fulfill this mission. My lord, thank you very much. My lord,
In courts, there are no thank yous.
gratitude. My lord, in the meantime, my lord, they may be directed not to disturb the status quo while your honor, your lordships take a time to call me further for answering questions. Kindly, if possible, please ensure that they don't disturb the status quo. I'm taking my seat, my lord, with your permission. My lord, you had asked about the charter. Do I need to
What
submit?
is that?
Charter. Previous hearing, you had said, does our charter, our memorandum of association?
required.
Thank you. May I take seat?
Heard, Mr. Mohammed Hassan Jowher, party appearing in person. As appellant in LPA-434 of 2022, who is also the sole respondent in LPA-193 of 2022. Yes, sir. How much time you are likely to take? All right, Monday.
I'll give the dates when the notices are done, when he was called. And
Whatever you want to give a copy to him in advance.
I'll do.
To hear respondent advocate. It's on Monday. 4:15.
Very good.
You come at 4:15. Don't go by what the office say. It is our judicial order that will count, Mr. Jowher. You comply with that. Don't telephone to these persons. They may misguide you.
I have learned.
Just
my lesson.
ignore it.
I've learned my lesson today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Why do you respond? Why do you? Huh? Why should they give our staff number? Don't give. Yes,
May I mention,
yes, one by one.
separate board serial number 6, my lord.
Huh?
Separate board, board number 2, serial number 6.
Yes,
Matter
is-
pertains to the land grabbing.
notice, stay.
Similar request for
can
serial
I-
number 5, Lordship.
5. Land grabbing.
Yes, Lordship.
There is a sick note, leave note.
Lordship, my name is there, Lordship. This near the Juthani.
Huh?
My name is already there, Lordship.
You are signed Wakalatama.
Yes, Lordship.
So we'll reject this leave note.
Sorry,
We'll
Lordship.
reject this leave note.
Yes,
The leave, Srimati Niyati K Jutani seeks for rejection of the leave note. Hence, leave note submitted by Jeet Patel, rejected. Heard. Issue notice, interim stay, same. Stay.
direct service will be permitted.
Direct service. will-
Not, they are there here, what?
May I mention, my lord, my serial number was 52.
One second, any other matter in list